Right, let's have a chat about grit. It is, what time is it? It's 10 o'clock at night. I normally go to bed at like 9, half 9. I have been working since half 6 this morning and I'm still working. Now, that used to be completely normal. I mean, you don't go from kind of owning just one house that you live in to owning a major portfolio without that level of work. It's no longer the norm, to be quite frank with you. But I've just taken a moment, and I think I'll have a cup of tea in a minute, just to reflect what grit is. So grit is kind of the ability to get up after a knock. And grit is the ability not to cave in when you receive some bad news, but to take whatever energy you use to respond to that bad news with and use it almost as a force. So without getting into too many details, because in the early days, there is such highs and lows in property because you've got such large amount of money going out, such major either mistakes or successes. And then later on, like at the stage I'm at now, it kind of levels off because my portfolio is built, we're now doing developments, we're moving forward, but an awful lot of the business is stable. But in the early days, of course, I wouldn't call it unstable, but what you're doing is you're building the whole time, so your cash flow is kind of out the window, and you're trying to manage cash flow but while making major investments, major renovations, managing a whole bunch of team, builders and all the rest of it. So your emotions can be very high and very low, and so can your cash flow. And then kind of year 10 where I'm at, it's quite a stable position. So without getting into too much detail, because I'm certainly not a neckhead, should we just say I had a meeting with a set of professionals today, and I've probably not said rude words in the office so frequently for a very long time. Leave it at that. And I'm so damn frustrated. It's unbelievable because they've done a C-level job. So there's two things here. Number one of our sayings all the way through our growth phrase was their fault, your responsibility. So as much as they've done a C-level job, and I'm just going to have a chat with them about that because I worked back a time frame and was like appalled at their time frame and appalled at their quality of their delivery today. Well, and appalled is an awfully strong word, but frankly I was. So yeah, we'll rectify that. That'll get resolved. I'm certainly not paying the kind of bills they're expecting me to pay. But more importantly, it reminded me of how the emotions used to be because because you're constantly growing in the past, whereas I've got like one project on the go. I used to have 30, and my response has been, okay, I'm going to take this energy that is quite strong energy in me today because I'm frustrated, and I'm going to use this energy to keep driving my business forward, which is kind of grit, isn't it? The ability to get up after a knock. Now, I haven't had the major kind of knocks that I used to have, because this is a minor thing in the grand scheme of life, totally manageable. But nonetheless, I'm just sort of reflecting back that my response is to go, right, I started work at like 6. It's like 6 or half 6, I can't remember actually, but let's just say 6, or maybe half 6, who knows. It's now 10 o'clock at night. Yeah, I've done an hour and a half of lifting, but apart from that, I've been working and I'm not stopping. And that's that kind of emotional response to a deeply frustrating situation, which is kind of grit. So if you don't have that, there are fight, flight and freeze as kind of mechanisms to emotional situations or dangerous situations. And property is not dangerous, but it is risky. So you could have a fight or a flight or a freeze response. I often have a bit of a fight response, which is kind of, you know what, you've done a rotten job. I'm kind of like gobsmacked and definitely said a number of very rude words today, quite openly, not to the person directly because I would consider that to be rude, but my emotional energy was very high and I kept the stress level high during the meeting because I was like, I'm not listening to a piece of nonsense. We're going to nail this, move it forward. Don't give me any sideways crap. And so my response is kind of like a fight, not directly fight, but like I'm going to fight by running my business. That's grit. But what if you have a flight response? You run away from fear. Well, how do you then take that emotional response and turn it back into, do you know what, I'm going to get back up after a knock? Or what if you have a freeze response, which is not really getting back up after a knock? Because the best way forward is to get back up after any knock and use that energy, which is kind of flowing through your veins in quite an irritated, negative way, to just power you on. I don't know the answer to this because I know what my own response is, but I think it's useful for you to really kind of understand your own emotional response to difficult or dangerous situations. Do you fight, do you flight, or do you freeze? And if you fight, then fabulous. Train it onto good stuff. Don't fight with people. Like, I very rarely fight with people. Like, I can't remember. But if you freeze, how can you turn that into I'm going to get back up and back on the horse fast? And if you flee, which is a normal response to certain situations, how do you say, hang on a minute here, I know this is my emotional response, but for me to be successful in property, I've got to get back on the horse, keep working, keep grinding, even when it's difficult. So grit, the ability to get up after a knock, and I am talking to you after being really frustrated today. I haven't been this frustrated in a very long time. And as a result, it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm working on my KPIs when I would normally be in bed an hour ago. Look, it's dark outside. I'm still in the office. I've been here since silly o'clock. Right, I'm going to take this irritation and I'm going to make something good with it. And I hope you take whatever irritations you get in property and make good stuff with it. And don't moan too much to your friends. I didn't much, I promise. See you soon. Bye.